Welcome to another episode of the Faith and Whatever podcast. I am your moderator extraordinaire, Josh Carmen. And again, like always, I am joined by the ever so talented Garrett Gearhart and the ever so fair James Yule. James Yule?
Fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced, Captain Fair and Captain Balanced. And the lovely man behind the mic, one Chris Carmen. We are broadcasting to you today live out of Marion Ranch Records, and we're really excited for this week. We've got a lot of good stuff to talk about and a lot of interesting topics to cover. So before we get into everything, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you've been up to?
I guess I'll start. I wanted to talk about a comic called The Covenant, but I didn't read it in time. So I'm going to talk about a different comic that I've been reading lately called Invincible, which is a comic written by Kirkman, who is famous for being the person who pretty much wrote all of the Walking Dead comics from which the show draws. And in this comic Invincible, what's great about it is you don't have to have any real comic knowledge. It doesn't tie into anything. It's its own story in its own universe. And it plays on the tropes of Superman. So the character that the lead of the story who ends up becoming invincible, his father is essentially Superman, right? They don't say that, but that's what they're trying to imply is that
Is he part alien, like alien kind of deal?
He's a quarter Kryptonian.
Right. So he's got almost the exact same backstory. His father has almost the same backstory as Superman. And but what really early on in the comic arcs, you find out that the whole story is a farce. It's fake. It didn't actually happen. His father is an alien, but he was sent to sort of get our planet soft and ready for his people to come and conquer us.
That sounds exactly like a Third Rock from the Sun. They just took that show and turned it into a comic.
Maybe.
John Lithgow, great actor, by the way.
It's a really great comic, and it makes fun of and draws on some of the classic tropes of comic books, but they turn them on their head, and it's just an excellent Kirkman comic. The art is actually quite good. Some people complain about the art in the beginning, but it gets great. And it's nice because it doesn't give you what you want as a reader. It doesn't sort of fall into the trap of pleasing the reader. It constantly sort of upsets you as a reader, which is nice in an ongoing comic where there's always the temptation to kind of go back to the way things were in comics, to kind of go back to ground like whatever the 0 point is of the story, so they can kind of just keep going as things are. But not this comic. It actually always sort of ruins the whole thing for you, right? And I kind of have to deal with the fact that they don't care what sort of world you want it to be, much like The Walking Dead, actually. And so I've really been enjoying this.
So how do comics work? Is there how often do they come out? Like, and how many will there be?
Oh. Well, it depends on the comic. Some can be weekly, but that's super rare. Some are twice a month, and that's pretty rare. This one is once a month, but it's been going for a number of years. There's about 125 of them now. Wow. And there's a certain moment in the comic series around the 120 mark, maybe just before it, where you could stop. And I'm still determining whether I should have stopped. Right, but definitely as somebody else reading it and being behind me, you could get to around the 120 mark and stop reading, and you'd have the full. It'd be like finishing on a good point with the series.
They go in a new direction, kind of, sort of after 120.
Yeah, well, what they do is they do sort of a soft reboot, where they don't reboot it completely, but they sort of fake like they are going to reboot it, and then there's a twist. It's not a reboot. So it's like, oh, they're rebooting it. Oh, they're not rebooting it. And then I haven't read past that twist. So we'll see what happens. But it's been really excellent. And it's one of the few comics I've read where I'm not always sure the main character is going to make it. Like, they've done a really good job of keeping the stakes high and keeping the reader on his or her toes the whole time. And
I mean, his toes. Let's just be clear. Not his or her. I mean, I understand the gender inclusivity, but
I was at
like 6 women.
I was at a comic book store today, and it was 50-50. Like, comics have really reached out to the other at gender quite a bit. Yeah,
good for comics.
The other? Are you saying there's only 2?
James, come on.
Thanks to The Big Bang Theory, the show that everyone loves to hate, everyone wants to read comic now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Everybody's
Comics
in
are
nerd
cool.
face.
That's right. That's right.
That's racist.
That's what people are calling it now, exploiting nerd culture.
yeah. So be on the lookout for Invincible. And you can probably find it on wherever you like to purchase your books. Get
Great
it in the
movie.
trades.
It's a fantastic movie starring
That sounds
Marky
really-
Mark,
that sounds really cool.
Canadian football star, tried out for the Philadelphia Eagles. Invincible, that
Yeah.
one you're talking about?
No.
That's a good movie, though.
Got it. All right. Garrett, what have you been up to this
So,
week?
not as exciting probably as the Invincible comic series, but I've been reading this book called.
That's our bar. Wait, that's our bar of exciting.
Sure, comic books are really exciting.
Yeah, no, you're
Thank
totally
you, Garrett.
right.
Thank you. Always a good friend.
It's called Must We Fight by good old William Ury.
Must we fight?
Must We Fight, William Ury. From the battlefield to the schoolyard, a new perspective on violent conflict and its prevention.
You're right. That's way less exciting.
I'm telling you.
Wait. Did you say from the battlefield to the schoolyard?
Uh-huh.
That's rough.
Violence is everywhere.
Schoolyards are a battlefield.
So this is a book that I'm reading for my conflict resolution class, but I really enjoyed it.
Okay,
and
so it's a signed reading.
yeah.
Nice.
Actually, it's a list of like 50 books for a book review, and you could pick anywhere in the 50 books.
That's
so,
cool.
and I liked it because it was a really good mix of kind of like scientific background and explanation for why there's human conflict. So I guess William Ury like kind of proposes that the current thinking is since like the 1970s is that humans are just violent, and they look at various primates and various historical evidence that humans have always been violent. So William Ury gets a couple of experts, one in primatology and one in archaeology, and says that yes, that is true, but there's just as much evidence that we as humans were really good at conflict resolution, and primates are good at that, and there's proof for that. So the whole first half of the book, and he looks at simple societies like Papua New Guinea tribes and things like that, and how they resolve conflict. So the whole first half of the
Spear
book.
to the chest.
I don't know what that is.
That's how you resolve conflict. Spear to the chest.
No, that's how they do it.
Okay. So it was really cool because I can kind of grab onto some of that evidence-based kind of, and a lot of my program has not been into much evidence. It's been conjecture. Let's just talk about theory of communication, theory of conflict resolution. This was like, let's look at monkeys and see how they resolve conflict, like do they bash each other's heads in or do they have sex with each other, So,
Or do
Classic.
they throw things at each other?
right.
Like maybe.
They're diapers.
So it was really cool. So that's one thing I've been doing, and I really enjoyed it. And that's surprising to say in a book about schoolyard violence. And the other thing that I wanted to get your guys' opinion on is, so I got a little Facebook message from one of my favorite bands. It's called The Collection. They're like an indie, I don't know, folk kind of band from
Were
South
they
Carolina.
asking you for money?
Yes, they were, right? So they're doing like, which everybody seems to be doing now, like pre-ordering their album.
Can't wait to do it myself.
So like, hey, you can get the album, but we're going to charge your credit card now, and it's going to be ready in 10 months, kind of thing.
If
where
you're
you
lucky.
Right.
So what happens if the band breaks up?
I don't know. So for example, on their website, it's a band. It is a website devoted to raising money for bands who want to kind of pre-order all their albums. It's called pledgemusic.com. And so this band has anywhere from $10, which will just get you like the actual album digitally, like once it comes out. And then you get various things like for $20, you get like a pound of some specialty coffee that they had roasted. You go all the way up to like, I don't know, a couple $1,000. You get like, they'll come to your house and play music.
The liver of the drummer.
It turns out you're just giving money to Starbucks. This band doesn't even exist.
That's right.
They never did.
You get a vinyl for $150, but
Oh my gosh,
they're
that's
limited
so
edition
expensive.
vinyls. There's only 15 of them, and then like $200 gives
Nobody
you.
cares enough for them to make more.
So what do you think? Like, do you think that's a cop out for like bands to get all the money up front and like, but there's no risk for them?
That's hard for me. I wouldn't support a band making their first album on a website like that. If they were making like their third LP or their fourth LP, I would be into.
This is probably their
supporting
fourth. Their fourth.
Okay,
album.
yeah, then I would support it because that means they have a track record, right? So there's a higher risk of success, in my opinion. I trust it a little bit more. I like the idea. I mean, we do crowdfunding with that kind of stuff.
They're
all the time.
kickstarting their
Yeah.
album is what they're doing.
Yeah,
They're
which I think is cool. I'm kind of all about the idea of doing whatever it takes to make it work.
So let me give you perspective. They did their last one on Kickstarter, and I pledged $50, and I won't be pledging for their new album. I'll just be waiting for the digital. I'll be waiting that extra 3 weeks.
Was it worth the $50?
Right, so I don't think it was. I got it the CD months before everybody else did, and I got like a postcard with some hand-drawn art that they did live during a recording, plus like a personal email. I'm just not gonna do it again. I'm just gonna wait and just download it on Google Music.
Yeah, there's a guy that I
$9.
follow on Tumblr whose name is Flat Sound, and he does this same kind of thing where he records all of his own stuff himself. And I think it's pretty interesting when he works kind of in that regard, because he will take the time to like make everything, to fill out notes by hand, thank you notes, and he writes it to all the people. He's got tens of thousands of followers, and so it will take him like months to send all this stuff out. But he's had this huge success doing like this self-marketing through basically Tumblr and whatever.
Personal.
Yeah,
handwritten
all because,
connections.
and he's just one guy, right? He's like a
Yeah.
Sufjan Stevens kind of guy.
I prefer the Peter Hollins approach. I like Peter Hollins. He's a acapella guy on YouTube. That's at least where I know him, and he remakes mostly, but I think he's had some original stuff. But what he does is he's putting out like a song or so once a month, and he has a Patreon where people are just supporting him along the whole process. Then those songs, when there's enough collected, then he makes an album out of it, right? And then people can purchase the album if they want. But they're giving along the, like, he's putting out content all along
Pretty
the way
regularly.
instead of dropping $50 and hoping in 10 months you get something for it, where it's like something's coming out every month.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like some pretty interesting stuff. I have been engrossed in this new television show that I have found called on Netflix called The 100 there, and it is terrible. It is an awful show. It's
Yes, it is.
It's
I watched the half
stupid.
of the first episode and never watched
No,
it
the
again.
writing is just deplorable, but I cannot stop watching. I have gone through the first season and a half. So I've gone through all of season 1 and half of season 2 in maybe like 4 days total.
Wow.
So I don't really know what to do with myself because I feel like this overwhelming sense of shame and guilt, but I can't turn it off.
Netflix gets its hook in you.
Yeah, and so like there's nothing like redemptive about this TV show. Like none of the characters are super attractive, male or female. I mean, they just kind of exist. The
So
writing.
You're saying that if a show was awful, but the people were pretty enough, you'd still watch
Oh
it.
yeah, that's come on. That's like half of everybody's reason for watching. Like I don't know, top America's Next Top Model cycles 7 through 15, which we all know weren't that good, right, guys? But whatever.
still
So
watch that.
shut up. No, the show just ended. Shout out
Is
to my girl,
Josh,
Tyra.
is it a Netflix original?
No, I don't think it's a no. I'm 100%
It's like a
sure that
WB
it's not.
original.
It was on
probably.
CW, I think.
CW.
Yeah,
Then it's
Sorry.
terrible.
So
It is terrible. It is terrible.
it's just really weird.
So why do you think you get so? Is it just because you can't, if you want, watch all 63 episodes at once?
No. It's only like 28 episodes. But
So is it
it's-
because
I like hard sci-fi? I guess I'm not a fan.
I don't know if I'd call it hard sci-fi.
Like it's not soft.
Actually, it's probably not hard sci-fi. Just by the title, it sounds
yeah,
like
I
it
haven't
would
heard it. I haven't
Hard
seen any
sci-fi
scientific calculation.
It's like
Oh, yeah,
The
there's a lot of
Martian. That would be hard sci-fi.
Yeah, this one is like they're born in. So here's the premise. Okay, they all grew up in space because the world was nuked, and so they've been in space for 100 years orbiting.
So
the
it's
Earth.
not hard sci-fi.
No, it's totally hard. So
No, just because it's very sci-fi doesn't mean it's hard sci-fi.
they're like the same thing. They're interchangeable adjectives. for
Not at
sci-fi.
all.
Well, I don't even know what hard sci-fi is.
Exactly.
But whatever. So
Obviously.
so they rotate in this arc thing because there's 12 international spaceships that have come together and to make the arc, and then they're trying to figure out if they can go back to Earth. So they
and
send,
all along, people are reproducing. There's more,
Yes.
higher population.
Yeah, so there's 2,300 and something people on the arc. 2,272
On each one or total?
No, in the whole arc. On all 12 space stations that have been.
Is there two of every animal?
No, 2 of every kind of person, though. Yes. So
So two jerks.
So they send
2 nice people.
Yeah. So they send 100 juvenile delinquents, kids who have been arrested for whatever crime.
Great
they're
idea.
Sent to the ground to see if it's inhabitable. Because if all the kids die,
Plus the
whatever,
president's
it's not a
daughter.
big deal. President's son.
Son.
The Chancellor is his name.
Chancellor.
Okay.
His name is Chancellor?
Chancellor Jaha is his title.
All right.
His real name is Thelonious Jaha, which is super hard sci-fi.
It's like his last name is laughing at his first name.
Yeah. And so Thelonious Jaha and the doctor lady, Abby.
Gosh, we're wasting so much time on this.
Abby something doctor. So yeah, you're probably right. So they send him to the ground and they find
go
out
ahead, man.
like what's happening, and Earth's inhabitable, and they have like super radiation resistant skin and blood cells, and then they have to fight these, humans on the ground that live there. Now I don't want to get into any spoilers in case people are really.
I didn't even
into
get to
it.
the
Sounds
humans on the ground. I
riveting.
just got to the rustling bushes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what's down here?
It's Lost.
It's amazing.
And I just
It kind of is a sci-fi Lost, and it makes about as much sense as Lost did in the 4th season.
Okay.
So that was that, and then I watched Deadpool yesterday. It was good.
Oh yes.
Good
So I'm the
movie.
only one who has not seen it at this point.
And
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
but it's great. It is a fantastic movie. Ryan Reynolds.
Don't take your kids to see it.
Do not do
Yeah.
that.
Don't be that person.
The language is probably rough for children.
And the incredible violence.
The fact that it's a
the
rated
violence
R
is okay. But
for
when-
children.
The violence is
When I was talking to
quite
Ryan,
ridiculous.
when I was talking to Ryan Reynolds in post production,
Yeah.
about everything, we were discussing what we thought.
We
were
like to
some
call
of
him
the-
Rai Rai.
Yeah, right. We were talking about some of the stuff that we thought could have been better, and one of the things that we had discussed actually made it into the movie with the credit scene. I won't talk about what it is, but I was pretty excited that he kind of took my advice for that.
I'll take things that didn't happen for 500.
No, he wouldn't answer my voicemails. So, Chris, what have you been doing this week?
It's been a pretty slow week for me. I've been playing the beta for Tom Clancy's The Division.
Oh, is that good?
It's pretty good. I don't know. Sometimes I have a hard time with third-person shooters because sometimes I'm blocking my own view and then I get shot by people I can't see because all I can see is myself.
Yeah,
I hear it's
classic.
quite possible to like wander into a zone in the game that's way too hard for your level.
It absolutely is. There's a player versus player zone
Okay.
that I did not realize was player versus player, and I walked in and somebody promptly shot me and took all my stuff.
Oh no.
But it's very Mad Max feeling because people come walking up to you and you don't like nobody has voice chat on, of course. And so you're like, is this guy gonna shoot me or should
What's
I
up,
just,
guys?
Yeah, should I just shoot him first just in case he might shoot me?
This is like an open world,
Yeah.
It's open
massive
world.
multiplayer game
Yeah,
with
you-
first person or third person shooter.
Yeah, it's set in New York.
sounds amazing.
After some kind of attack or event.
It's like
something that. I don't really read.
pre-apocalyptic.
That's
Yeah.
kind of cool. That's the same area where the 100 is set in.
And then
New York?
there's a section
Northeast.
that like the military loosely controls.
Okay.
And so it's more or less safe. And then you go outside of that, and that's the player versus player area. And you can help each other or you can fight each other. So, but when
Any
nobody's chatting.
objectives? Any goal objectives missions?
Yeah, lots of missions around, just kind of random. You
Yeah.
walk around and you find missions to do and collect loot. And
How
that sort of
satisfying
thing.
is the environment? Is it? Because I heard it's not very big. Is it dense?
It's dense. I mean, it's hard to say because it's the beta, right?
Right, right.
It felt like it could use some more random encounters.
Okay.
Like it felt a little sparse. But
So the beta isn't mastered yet?
it's hard to say.
Okay.
Yeah, because some betas are very raw and some are basically the game already.
Right.
So,
We call that going gold with video games. When you go gold, then it's ready to go.
yeah. So it's fun though, and it's beautiful looking. Absolutely beautiful looking. So
Sounds cool.
That's pretty good. Well, feel free again if you can follow us on all of our social media outlets. Good news is we are going to be hearing from iTunes very soon on whether or not we're going to be accepted as a acceptable podcast or whatever.
iTuneable.
And
Yeah,
if
that's
we
a
don't, we can just call Rai. He hook it up, right?
He was telling me that's a maybe. He doesn't want me to keep name dropping. He's asked me to stop that a few times now. But
His lawyers has.
yeah, the good news is we are all accessible on Twitter. I'm at Josh_CARMAN. Chris is at Marion Ranch. You got Garrett at TStudentLife and James at JamesYuile. And our Faith in Whatever podcast is Faith in the letter in and then whatever. So Faith in Whatever. faithinwhatever.com is the best place to connect with us, or if you want to send us an email and talk to us about what you'd like to see on the show or anything that we can help you with, we would love to hear from you. We're at faithinwhatever@gmail.com or facebook.com/faithinwhatever. So let's go ahead and get straight into the news topics.
All right.
We've got some excellent ones for you today. First one we're discussing is okay. You have to be aware of this.
okay.
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 Is this very important news?
This was very recently written news.
But is it important?
Kim Kardashian game.
No.
Okay. It is important. Made $100 million in its first 5 quarters.
It's important
ridiculous.
how disappointing that is.
Yeah.
219
brilliant.
in total.
Or brilliant.
No, 219 shares. So in total, players have spent. This article is from IGN.com.
200. There's only 219 total players.
No.
in the
This
game.
article has 219 shares, not players. No, there are. I'm sure there's hundreds of players. So in total, players have spent a total of 34,978 years in game. This is amazing.
How many of those years are yours?
Oh, probably like 90.
That's ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
Kim Kardashian is not. I mean, she's a nobody, but essentially she's not. She's a business genius.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I just really wanted
She
to.
has to be smarter than we think because
Correct.
Or there's smart people
she's an
behind her.
empire.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
her,
true,
her
too.
mom's
Everybody's behind her, right?
That she
Right.
hasn't fired, so maybe that's a good thing.
her mom is super smart. Chris is a tiger for sure for business and all things, money grubbing. But $100 million, guys, in a year, in just over a year. So laugh all you want, but the masses have spoken, and we're correct. I'm number 2.
Majority
In my game now?
majority groups make mistakes all the time.
That's
the
fine.
danger of democracy.
That's fine.
So basically, now it's time to get out because it's just going to go down from here.
Maybe you could sell your account.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
actually thinking about that, but it's connected to my game center, and I don't want to lose my Clash of Clans account. So I don't quite know what to do about that, but I've thought about that.
You need to fund us. That's what you need to do.
So whatever you guys want to say about me, you can, but
Okay.
We have.
And
I
can
don't-
that be all we say about the Kim Kardashian game?
I don't care about you guys
All right.
whatsoever. Yeah, that's all. And then, so that was just to start this with, here's a real good one for us to focus in on. This article is from worldreligionnews.com, and it's by Derek Welch. And it's a study on the perception of Jesus, Christians, and evangelism in the United Kingdom. So this was an interesting thing. Just read this and follow along with me just for a brief moment because the setup is worth it. As Christians all over the globe had gathered to commemorate Ash Wednesday earlier this month, the Church of England had published a research to find out UK Christians' perception on understanding of Jesus and evangelism. So this is from the Church of England. Special task force of the Barna Group was commissioned to try and find out Christian adults, or what Christian adults in the UK know about Jesus and how often Christians in the UK talk about having faith among Jesus, among themselves, or even to non-Christians. So according to this research on the question of whether or not Jesus was indeed a real man, a myth, more adults attested to the fact that he was a real person. Pretty obvious. I don't think there's no serious scholar in their field
Well,
that ever contends against the historicity of Jesus.
well, yes and no. Let me put it this way.
It's like 99% of scholarship.
I was taking
right?
a course from in a graduate school at a very prestigious school. An amazing
Ooh, Mr. Big
professor.
Shot.
Well, no, just I want to. It's got nothing to do with me. I mean, I was a student there, not a teacher. Right? Being a teacher at a prestigious school is something to gloat about. Not being a student. I was taking a class from not a theologian, not somebody in a religion department, a historian in a history department, working with history, published scholar, knows his stuff. And I remember him saying in class, kind of just offhand, he's saying that no legitimate historian questions the historicity of the person Jesus. Now, what do
Right.
you think about that person?
Right,
That's
right.
different. But the only people that, ironically, the only people that question whether Jesus existed as a human being on earth are theologians. No legitimate historians do. It's people who work in the realm of theology and religion that sometimes bring that topic up. And I get the sense that they often do that because it's an easy way to make waves. But this very legitimate historian very firmly put that there's just so much historical data about the figure of Jesus that you can't. There's no way to. That data can't come from just nowhere. That doesn't make any sense.
So what is it? What was the stats again on the
So-
whether or not he existed?
Yeah, that one was pretty. That one was pretty good.
What was it?
It's like 61%
I mean, so that-
of all UK adults believe Jesus was real.
which
fairly-
means
fairly
39% don't.
Right. Yeah. All right, still pretty good. Wait, let me make sure I got that. I'm reading that right.
I think it's pretty low, but
I think there was a neutral position to it. Don't know.
Yeah. Yes, no, and don't know.
okay.
Yeah. So what's interesting here?
Now, aren't they polling Christians in the UK? Like in the sense that like people who are like registered as Christian or or somehow relate to the Christian tradition.
Yeah, I mean, people who might call themselves
Right. Whether you call them that's a different question, but they call themselves Christian.
right, yeah.
So 39% of Christians said they don't believe or
if
don't
I'm
know.
reading this right.
Why don't you just read the actual
So all
results?
UK, so the yeah, I mean those are the actual results. So all UK adults, here are the three categories, right? The overarching umbrella is Jesus, man or myth, and then percentage among UK adults. All UK adults 18 to 34, UK adults 35 plus. So all UK adults, whether or not Jesus was a real person who actually lived, 61%. UK adults 18 to 34, 57%. UK adults 35 plus, 63%.
Wow.
So Jesus is a mythical or fictional character. This is believed this. 22% of all UK adults did. And the majority of that came out of the 18 to 34 demographic, where 26%, and then only 20% of UK adults 35 plus believe that. And then 17% opted for don't know category. So here's what's interesting. Only 22% of the UK Christians hold the conviction that Jesus Christ was God in human form. That
There we
lived
go.
among
So
people
UK Christians
in the first century. Yeah. So it is. The article states again. The article posted by Derek Welch from WorldReligionNews.com states that only 22% of the UK Christians who holds to the conviction that Jesus Christ was God in human form that lived among people in the first century. So
that's crazy.
and then also interesting, the question of the resurrection of Jesus also received a mixed reaction. It says, according to the research, only 44% of the UK adults believe that the resurrection indeed occurred. They believe that the event occurred as clearly as outlined in the Bible, or the other group, made up of 26% of the UK adults, was of the opinion that the Bible, quote, contains some content which should not be taken literally, unquote.
Marcus Borg coming back from the dead.
No kidding, man. He and just really dominant there. So
But it's not a physical resurrection when he comes back from the dead. It's only a spiritual one.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? You just want to offer a quick thought before we wrap up this segment here?
I mean, I think we all know this, even if we don't talk about it, that Christianity is just as much a culture now as it is a religion.
Sure.
And I think there's plenty of people who even strongly feel connected to the culture of Christianity. And if that's your primary connection to the term, then I can see why you would believe these other things, because it's. But when it comes to the religious side, people who take their Christianity very seriously about what it says about the world, what it says about ourselves in connection to God and God existing, those are really surprising numbers. And I've always thought that it's sort of easy if you don't think about it all the way through to sort of have Christian views and disregard the death, burial, and resurrection. But if you think about it, if you disregard the death, burial, resurrection, if you take the resurrection away, the whole bottom drops out.
What else is the point?
Right. I mean, why are you doing the rest then? Because it's all built upon the foundation of the resurrection. The whole notion of Christianity is built upon that particular historical truth, right? That historical assertion.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's not historical, you can believe in a lot of things. You can believe in God, but not the way it's defined in the New Testament, because the whole New Testament rests on the resurrection.
Of holding an axiom like that if you're not going to, like the axiom that is Christianity and the totality of it, if you're not going to affirm that.
Yeah.
There. Do you think there's a case to be made in the New Testament for a spiritual resurrection?
Well, I mean, I've heard Christians basically affirm their Christianity and completely disregard the New Testament, for example. I was like, but all of Christianity is defined. It's a branch of the New Testament. When you take away the tree trunk, there's no point in having branches anymore. They all fall to the ground, right?
And they'll be cast into the outer fire. Where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. I'm just kidding.
they're not a part of the new covenant if they don't really have accepted.
There
those
just
things.
isn't anything. It's like the entire Christian conversation
ceases to
hinges
exist.
on the New Testament, right? And the New Testament hinges on the resurrection. It just does. I'm not trying to browbeat people into believing a certain way.
But,
No, but I'm just but just be consistent with your beliefs.
Right.
Once you take the fundamental basis away, you don't have a house anymore. And so what you should be doing is thinking about what you really do believe, because it's not actually maybe Christian, which is fine. It's fine. I have plenty of friends who aren't Christian, and they're very firm in their beliefs, and I respect them for their beliefs. But they know what they believe, at least in that case, right? They're not just making an illogical leap. Which is, that's my opinion at least. What
But
do you think,
lipstick
Eric?
on a pig
Well,
doesn't make it a pretty lady.
You know, like
That's all I'm saying.
I've spent a couple times I visited Europe, and I'm not really surprised that the statistics for those who believe in Christ and the physical resurrection are that low. I mean, the countries are very,
Secularized.
very secularized, and there's people can debate as to why that is. And to be honest, I'm not very familiar with, kind of like the missional movement in Europe and even Great Britain. So please forgive me if I kind of overstate my opinions on this. But when I was in the Czech Republic, which is I've heard is the most atheistic country in Europe.
Really? Okay.
We were getting a bike tour from a native Czech guy, and we're visiting like the churches, and I was with two friends of mine and who are not Christian, and I guess we want to see churches. These churches are old. There's Christian symbolism all over Europe.
A lot of them are crusade era.
Yeah, bombed in World War II.
And so I remember asking him, so what is kind of the view on Christianity, for you and your friends? He was in his 20s, as well. I mean, to me, it's just a building to show tourists. And I asked, well, do they hold services here? He's like, I have no idea. I said, do you ever come here on a tour and be like, oh, sorry, we're holding service? No, I think it's only here for tourists as well. And I said, well, where are the real churches? He didn't know. Like he had never seen a real church, like Sunday morning service, and I kind of had more conversation about that. And his view, and this is true in a lot of ways, that the state religions really hurt Christianity and its development in these countries, because they're even now in some countries hundreds of years, or maybe quite not that long, but in some countries where it's been a generation since there's been a state-run church, they still feel like anything to do with Christianity and the church means you're agreeing with whatever the state-run church is.
Right.
And they are having a tough time having a personal faith and a personal connection with Christ that doesn't involve some type of connection to the state.
Yeah, I mean, I've read in the past that we're actually entering into a missionary era where, famously countries like America and parts of Europe and others were sending missionaries to countries in Africa and South America.
Missionaries in places like China and Africa.
Right. Now places in China and Africa and South America are sending missionaries to us. This is the situation with Christianity and the world. Is that places that we thought Christianity needed to develop, that's where it's strong, and the previous pillars are quite weak.
Sure. I heard some statistic about
now when you call Africa the dark continent, you're just being racist. So
it was always racist.
I heard some statistic that Czech Republic is something like 88% atheist. So that excludes all other religions fit in that 12%. So I would think that'd be a huge mission field. I mean, that means that if you divide all the other religions, that maybe Christianity is 6-7% of the population. And I think looking at a mission field like that is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, just interesting to be aware of there. So feel free again to follow us on all forms of social media. We would love to connect with you. If you have any insight or any suggestions even to this and you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave them in the comments. All right, thanks so much.